So Bernie Sanders apologized to Joe Biden because a campaign surrogate wrote something bad about Joe Biden in The Guardian. She basically called him a corrupt politician, and then Bernie Sanders apologized for some reason, which is beyond me. Let's take a look.
Campaign trail and a rare apology. Senator Bernie Sanders apologized to former Vice President Joe Biden in an exclusive interview with CBS News. This followed a newspaper op-ed from a Sanders surrogate accusing Biden of having a, quote, corruption problem. Ed O'Keefe is in Des Moines. Ed, with the Iowa caucus is less than 2 weeks away, why this apology?
Well, good morning, Anthony. Remember, the race for president remains a toss-up, so all the candidates are looking for some way to break through. In this op-ed, Zephyr Teachout, a New York liberal and prominent Sanders surrogate, argues that Joe Biden has a corruption problem for taking contributions from wealthy donors. She writes, middle-class Joe has perfected the art of taking big contributions, then representing his corporate donors at the cost of middle and working-class Americans. The op-ed was later circulated by the Sanders campaign. The Biden campaign quickly swung back, and other observers suggested the attacks are part of a pattern for Sanders dating back to his 2016 campaign when he faced criticism for not stopping supporters from aggressively attacking opponents like Hillary Clinton or, more recently, Elizabeth Warren and Biden. When we caught up with Senator Sanders last night in that exclusive interview, he called on his supporters to play nice.
Joe and I have strong disagreements on a number of issues, and we'll argue those disagreements out. But it is absolutely not my view that Joe is corrupt in any way. And I'm sorry that op-ed appeared to me. I appeal to my supporters, please, engaged in civil discourse. And by the way, we're not the only campaign that does it. Other people do, act that way as well. But I would appeal to everybody. Have a debate on the issues. We can disagree with each other without being disagreeable, without being hateful.
In response last night, Biden tweeted his thanks to Sanders and said these kinds of attacks have no place in this primary. Biden is out on the trail here in Iowa today holding two events, while the senators running for president, of course, are back in Washington for that impeachment trial. But Sanders is deploying a big supporter here to Iowa in the coming days. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York will hold events for him Friday and Saturday. Gail, I think it was Elton John who once said, sorry seems to be the hardest word. For whatever reason last night, Bernie Sanders could say it.
Yeah, and it sounded good to a lot of people. Civil discourse, it's a good thing. Seems rare these days. Thank you very much, Ed O'Keefe, reporting.
Okay, what the hell was that? What is going on here? This is what I hate about Bernie Sanders. He is always trying to play nice when he shouldn't be playing nice. The Iowa caucus is in 2 weeks. It's time to take the gloves off, okay? There was a lot of people before who were saying, oh no, it's okay that he's not being too rough in the debates. Just wait. When the primary really starts, then he'll take the gloves off. Hey, it's primary time. Why are you still playing nice? Why are you apologizing for something that's true? This blows my mind. I don't know what's going on here. I really don't know what's going on. Bernie's whole thing, when he started running in 2016 and his campaign now, is rooting out corruption, right? How much does he talk about that? He talks about that endlessly. That's his thing, alongside Medicare for All. Okay? He always talks about how the financial sector, the big banks, they are controlling the country. Big Pharma is controlling the country, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, all of this stuff. He's the one who brought attention to these things into the mainstream. Okay? Joe Biden takes money from the private healthcare sector. Joe Biden takes money from real estate giants. Joe Biden takes money from the financial sector, from credit card companies, and helps them rip off Americans every day. What is wrong with calling that out? Where's the issue with calling that out? How is stating Joe Biden's record an attack? I still don't understand this. We had the same issue with Joe Biden playing the victim because people are talking about his record on wanting to cut Social Security. And now Bernie Sanders is even extending him an apology. Oh my God. No. This is bad. This is terrible. And I went and I read the article in question that was published in The Guardian. It's brilliant. It is brilliant. It is nothing but facts. I'm going to read you a bit of it now. It is completely on point and accurate. And I can't believe that not only is Bernie Sanders denying the truth that we all know, but also apologizing to Joe Biden for something he did not even do. This is also another issue that Bernie Sanders keeps on doing. He keeps bending over to the mainstream media and being like, oh, I'm sorry that some trolls on Twitter that I have no connection with whatsoever and who maybe support me were mean to some random people on Twitter. What the hell? It's not your fault. You're not responsible for that. You can't control every single human being on the planet. What the hell? And now he's doing this? Bernie Sanders didn't write this article. A surrogate did. Okay, that's maybe, albeit a bit more serious than just online Twitter trolls, but still, there's nothing to apologize here. And this is so stupid and bad. It makes Joe Biden look good and make people think that, yeah, he's not corrupt when he is corrupt. He's just like the rest of them. I thought that's what sets you apart from them, Bernie. I thought you're the one who's not corrupt. Man, this is ridiculous. It's really, really bad. And I was shocked to see that. Let me read you a bit from this article, which is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to link it in the comments in the description. Go take a look at it. Biden has a big corruption problem and it makes him a weak candidate. People will look at Biden and Trump and say they're all dirty. Yes, exactly. That's what people have been saying. That's why Bernie Sanders, who is an alternative to them, is the most popular politician and candidate in the country because he is supposedly not corrupt and not dirty. He presents a contrast in regards to the rest of the politicians. That's why he's popular. So I don't see what the issue is in stating that. It looks like middle-class Joe has perfected the art of taking big contributions, then representing his corporate donors at the cost of middle and working class Americans. Converting campaign contributions into legislative favors and policy positions isn't being moderate. It is the kind of transactional politics Americans have come to loathe. Meaning that Joe Biden is a prostitute for corporations. He takes money from them and then turns that into law that favors their business. That's exactly what it means. And that's what Americans hate and what they've had enough of. So it's very ironic that he then goes and touts himself as a middle-class Joe, like some guy who actually cares about working-class Americans and middle-class people. No, he doesn't. He serves his donors, and he's even said it himself. He said, I wanted to prostitute myself. That's verbatim. That's from his own mouth, okay? This is not conjecture. We're not speculating. The facts are the facts. That's his record. And then Zafir Teachout, the woman who wrote this article, she goes on to give you some very clear examples that are absolutely undeniable. First, Biden's support for finance over working class Americans. His career was bankrolled by the credit card industry. He delivered for it by spearheading a bankruptcy bill that made it harder for Americans to reduce their debts and helped cause the financial crisis. He not only authored and voted for that bill, he split with Barack Obama and led the battle to vote down Democratic amendments. So, I mean, this is something where if I were Elizabeth Warren, I'd be contrasting myself with Joe Biden because she created the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau and Joe Biden was actively working to screw over Americans, whereas her body that she created in the government was there to protect Americans from predatory finance schemes and credit card companies. So I would be contrasting myself with Joe Biden's record on that all the time if I were Elizabeth Warren. So at a fundraiser last year, Biden promised his Wall Street donors that nothing would fundamentally change for them if he became president. Now the financial world is raising huge money for his campaign. It clearly thinks he's going to be its friend if elected. Most Americans who get ripped off by the financial sector on a daily basis aren't looking for a candidate who made their life harder. Second, healthcare. On April 25th, the day he announced his campaign, Biden went straight to a fundraiser co-hosted by the chief executive of a major health insurance corporation. He refuses to sign a pledge to reject money from insurance and pharma execs and continues to raise money from healthcare industry donors. His campaign is being bankrolled by a super PAC run by healthcare lobbyists. What did all these donors get? A healthcare proposal that preserves the power of the insurance industry and leaves 10 million Americans uninsured. If you were still not clear on why Joe Biden opposes Medicare for all, there you go. Because his donors, his masters, won't let him. He is beholden to them, and he's there to carry out what's best for them. Medicare for All would abolish private insurance companies because it doesn't allow duplicative care. And so they go out of business. They completely go out of business. except for, cosmetic surgeries and stuff like that, stuff that is supplemental. But in essence, they would, for the most part, go out of business. And Joe Biden is there to make sure that doesn't happen. That's why he opposes Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill and universal health care in general. Okay, because it's very clear about what would happen to the private healthcare industry. And Joe Biden, he's their good little cookie. He gets their money and he goes out on the debates, on the trail, running for president to make sure that doesn't happen. And people, Americans, are not only in need of universal health care because it's bankrupting them and it's unavailable to people who even do have insurance, but they also don't want a president who's beholden to corporations. You see, third, climate change. Biden signed a pledge not to take money from the fossil fuel industry, then broke his promise. Right after a CNN town hall on climate change, he held a fundraiser hosted by the founder of a fossil fuel conglomerate. He's pushing climate policy that has gotten dismal reviews from several leading environmental groups. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but when this was brought up, there was a guy who came to Joe Biden and asked him about it, like, why did you go to this fundraiser that was held by a fossil fuel executive? And Joe Biden pretended not to know that guy was in the fossil fuel industry. I mean, come on. Are you serious? You don't know who's raising money for your campaign? Get the hell out of here, man. You take people for suckers. He really thinks people are suckers. Unfortunately, some older voters are, because they want to vote for a guy who's going to cut their Social Security and takes them for idiots. As you see in the article, financial sector, credit card industry, healthcare, and climate change. Joe Biden is never going to compromise on these issues towards a progressive cause because he's beholden to corporations that have opposing interests, who have opposing views and agendas to the progressive cause, okay? To what Bernie Sanders is running on, what the progressive movement is about, which is action on climate change, getting rid of the private healthcare insurance industry and giving people universal healthcare, and also getting rid of these predatory financial practices. I think Bernie Sanders and AOC, they worked on an amendment that would cap interest rates for credit cards. So that's not in the interests of the financial sector. They don't like that kind of stuff, okay? So we have completely opposing views here, and on top of it, a corrupt politician. Do you understand? So he's not only running against what most people want, but he's also always going to be beholden to corporations and not to the people. That's what corruption is. That's the definition of corruption. And that's what is being called out in this article. And I have no idea why Bernie Sanders is apologizing for it. But here's the thing. Nominating a candidate like Biden will make it far more difficult to defeat Trump. It will allow Trump to muddy the water, to once again pretend he is the one draining the swamp, running against Washington culture. Trump and the Cambridge Analytica of 2020 will campaign, as they did in 2016, on a message of radical nihilism. Everybody lies. Everybody's corrupt. Nothing matters. There is no truth. Corrupt politicians always use whataboutism. With Biden, we are basically handing Trump a whataboutism playbook. The comparison won't be fair, but if you think he won't use Biden's closeness to donors as a cudgel to try keep people home, you haven't been paying attention. Exactly. This is exactly what we've been talking about the entire time, is that if you let Joe Biden get the nomination for the Democratic Party, I mean, people won't come out to vote, and Donald Trump will clobber him over the head with his own record. Because Donald Trump is arguably probably more corrupt than Joe Biden, but he's a better bully and he's a better showman. Just look how he bodied the 16, 17 other Republican candidates that were running against him in 2015. Those were career politicians, okay? And he bodied them. He annihilated them just by being a very pompous, braggadocio bully on stage, in the debate stage, on Twitter, in the media. That's how he did it. And that's what he's going to do with Joe Biden. So even though he's more corrupt, he's still going to be able to make a bigger deal out of Joe Biden's record, and then no one will be able to look at him. He's going to be on the offensive, okay? And Joe Biden's going to get clobbered with it. I mean, Joe Biden can't even speak a coherent sentence, never mind defend his own record, okay? Anytime a girl or a woman gets in his face and asks him about his record, he just starts pointing at them like some mean old man and then scurries away. He can't even defend himself against a little girl. What's he going to do against Donald Trump, man? This is why you need someone like Bernie Sanders, who has nothing on him, who does not have a corrupt record. Donald Trump has nothing on him. Do you understand why it's important to nominate someone like Bernie? There is nothing on him. The only thing he can ever say is, oh, he's a socialist. But that doesn't mean anything. That's it. Whether or not Biden is making choices to please donors, there is no doubt his record represents the transactional, grossly corrupt culture in Washington that long precedes Trump. We cannot allow Trump to so lower our standards that we aren't even allowed to call out that culture, which is not only stymied progress, but also harm the Democratic Party. Exactly. Because this is what most Democrats, most neoliberals want you to do. They want you to shut up about Joe Biden and about his corruption because Donald Trump is worse. No, they're both bad and they both need to be called out, which is what progressive channels like this one do all the time. We call out all of it. And even when Bernie Sanders does some dumb crap, like today apologizing to Joe Biden over nothing, we also got to call that out because that is stupid. It is stupid. There is nothing good about that 2 weeks before the Iowa caucus. What was the point of that? Who are you trying to please and score points with? You know, he does this because he has a good heart and he's a nice guy. I get that. But, dude, this is politics. I mean, he should know that, of all people. It's not going to score you any points, man. He should be taking the gloves off right now because this article is so well written and on point. It's citing nothing but facts and the eventual truth that if you nominate someone like Biden, he's going to lose and Donald Trump is going to win again. So there's nothing to apologize over in this article, especially if you didn't write it yourself, Bernie. All right. But on top of it, you should be using this. You should be pointing out all these things more aggressively about Joe Biden. Okay. All these things that are in this article, Bernie should be saying them on the debate stage, on the campaign trail every single day because Joe Biden is his most prominent opponent and adversary right now, especially in a state like Iowa. So it's not going to be against Elizabeth Warren and Booty Juggalo. He doesn't have to worry about them. He's got to worry about Biden, who's the front runner or so-called front runner. And you get him with this record. You just state his record. That's not an attack. It doesn't matter what Joe Biden thinks of it or what CNN thinks of it. They can go to hell. So this is the thing that I hate about Bernie Sanders. He's always too nice. Stop playing nice. There's no time for that anymore. There's no time, man. The DNC, the Democratic neoliberal establishment, already screwed over Bernie in 2016, and in part because he was nice, too nice. This time, man, can't afford to do that again. I don't think he's going to run again after this one, okay? This is crunch time right now. This is the moment. 2 weeks, right around the corner of the primary. Right now is when you take the gloves off. Stop playing nice. Stop delaying the inevitable. You got to take him down, Bernie. Take him down.